We'll do it live.
Good evening and welcome to Under the Sticks, presented by Big Red Cloud. Visit www.bigredcloud.com for all your online accounting needs. Gentlemen, welcome. I am not Andy McGeady, as you will all notice. Adam Redmond from Pro 14 here, taking over the hosting duties for Andy, who's unavailable tonight. So with us tonight, as ever, Sean Holley, and I see you've moved the big chair in for the camera.
Yeah, I've taken a little bit more of a laid-back seating position. I hope you don't mind. I've had a busy day today. I played some golf. I've done some exercise, done some gardening. It's been really hot here in South Wales. So, do you mind me having this sort of relaxed sort of posture?
I think it's a bit of an aggressive move. You're trying to be king of the pod or something with your throne. So.
Oh no!
Looks like a Bond villain.
I can't compete. I can't compete with John McEnroe's toilet here, can I?
and with further ado, Mr. Paul Williams, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you, gentlemen?
All good. I've been doing a bit of manual labour, and look, I know we're all going to hear about Sean's fitness regime and stuff like that, but I've something to put up later on that should probably put his lockdown fitness regime to shame. So there we go. I am also delighted to welcome to the show, making debut, Jamie Lyall of Premier Sports, of Rugby Pass, of BBC Scotland, of many verified and equitable rugby destinations for your content and writing needs. Jamie, thank you all the way from Scotland tonight.
No, my pleasure. Thanks very much for thinking of me. Almost as sunny here in Glasgow as it has been in South Wales, I'm sure. I have not been racking up as many steps as the bold Mr. Holley down below me, but I did get on the bike today, and then we went and purchased some bark for the back garden, because that's just the sort of thing you do during lockdown, isn't it? So I've still got half a fence to paint at some point, but I've managed to put that off for today.
Absolutely. Right, we have our guest tonight, guys. He's here nice and early. We have started reasonably early, which is all good. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce, of Dragons Rugby, Ashton Hewitt. Ashton, welcome to Under the Sticks.
Hi guys, you alright?
Hi, Ashton.
How's it going?
All good here, all good. Quiet lockdown for you so far, yeah?
Oh, not quite, as I'm sure many are aware, but it's not been the exercise, it's been the Twitter fingers, as I'm sure you're aware of. So
well, you know,
a bit different to usual.
We will talk some rugby tonight, because there's lots of good things to talk about as far as Dragons are concerned.
Definitely.
And where you guys are going. But yeah, no, we wanted to chat to you because you've been making a really positive impact. Using your voice, using your platform over the last couple of weeks. Everybody is fully aware of the discussion going on right across the world now about social inequality, racial inequality, everything that we're seeing, the movements and that. And you picked up on something recently that's really kicked off the discussion from your point of view, talking about something that you saw on Twitter. So just for anybody who's got their head under a rock the last couple of weeks, how have you got involved in the larger conversation recently?
Well, basically, it's been something that I've always been aware of, and that I've always experienced. But after the horrific incident with George Floyd, I think it surfaced a lot of issues. So somebody made a comment on it, and somebody I know quite well. And after that comment was made, he got attacked on Twitter by a load of trolls, which then I got involved in trying to defend him. And then I was met with quite heavy abuse. So I just got involved in that way, really. And ever since then, it's taken off. And like you said, it's been at the forefront of discussions, all over social media, all over the news. And it's just something that I've continued to be vocal about, really. And it's sort of met me as well as me putting myself forward to express things.
Yeah. And sorry, Sean, after you.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Ash, like you're from a multicultural part of Wales, aren't you? You know, so you know it's unbelievable that you day to day still, you know, are aware of it in and around society, particularly around our sport, and are clearly on social media and stuff. I mean, how How do you temper yourself, man? How do you deal with yourself day to day with your mates, and if you hear something like that?
Well, there's lots of different forms. I've spoke about it on various different platforms, whether it be banter or slight harassment by the police or whatever, and I've had direct aggressive racism towards me. But when I was a lot younger, I used to deal with it by getting angry and fighting quite a lot. And I've had encounters with the police throughout my life from when I was a young teenager, and that was frustrating. But it almost become for me the same as I think it does for a lot of young black or mixed race boys and boys and girls from other ethnic minorities, that it sort of becomes a norm, and it's taken something this drastic for people to sort of snap out of it and address it head on and put their foot down and say that enough's enough, really.
So Ashton, just in terms of the conversation, I think, and everything that's going on at the moment as well, I believe as well quite recently somebody is no longer on Twitter, and apparently it may have something to do with an interaction you've had as well. So Katie Hopkins is no longer on Twitter. How have you and Katie Hopkins managed to entwine on Twitter that she's now being given the...
Can I just say, I think it's as important as a Lions test cap. What he's done. So,
I'll take that. But so basically, I've avoided speaking her name on Twitter for a long time after I see a lot of people retweeting her stuff and, commenting on the horrible things that she says. And it came around after Marcus Rashford wrote that letter to the government in order to help out with underprivileged kids and their school meals, to which Katie Hopkins had some pretty inhumane and horrible things to say about, and that sort of tipped me over the edge. But to avoid any conflict and the situation that's happened, basically, I didn't tag her in the tweet, and I just basically said she's toxic, maybe with a bit more aggression behind it. But I basically said Katie Hopkins is toxic, and I didn't tag her in it, so she must have searched her name, and she came across it, and she replied to the tweet something about, is he? I hope he's hung like a baboon, or something like that, which a lot of people took in a lot of different ways, and she's not a stupid woman, so of course she related it to something other than race. But after that, she'd red flagged me to all of the Katie Hopkins fans, and Twitter's been a bit of a whirlwind ever since, really. So that's that story.
And it's an interesting thing as well there, just because that whole experience on social media, and it's young players and in all sports have to deal with it, because as soon as you're up there and as soon as you're doing your work on the pitch and you're there to be shot at, social media can be a really, really tough environment. You take this to the next level where we're talking about, racial injustices, pure out racism and trolling and stuff like that. That's a lot to handle. How are you coping with that? And I mean, by everything I've seen, you seem to be taking it in stride, but that can't be easy whatsoever.
Yeah, I sort of have to give myself, a few minutes between tweets and replies and getting back to people, because I've taken the stance of sort of thinking that education is the key, really. And I think I was a bit naive at the start of everything that's been going on in trying to reply to everyone and address everyone, even some of the people that were posting the most vile things to me. I try and approach it calm and composed, and that's probably been one of the most frequent compliments that I've had over the past few weeks is, how have you been able to remain so calm? But like I said earlier on, for myself, it's not something that I'm completely new with. But in all honesty, when I first started getting a lot of attention, when it first all kicked off, it did leave me in a bit of a bad place, because a lot of my friends, I've obviously got family who are black or of a mixed race, and it's hurting a lot of people. You know, my little sister, she can't even, you know, she does now. She's sort of got her head around it. But in those couple of weeks, she couldn't even go on social media because she couldn't bear to face what people were saying, especially when it was targeted at me. And she'd sort of question me, and why on earth would you open yourself up to all this? So I think it's important for people to understand that a lot of people are in different headspaces when it comes to this sort of thing. And to be honest, mentally, it did challenge me at the start because I'm not really huge on social media. So if there was any advice I'd say is during this time, if you've got anyone you think would be affected, is to give them a shout, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and like the other side of this, then you talk about that's a bit of support and things like that. And Dean Ryan has said some really genuine and heartfelt things about how he sees your standing and how you're showing your sort of your calmness in terms of how you're dealing with all of this. What's the mood like around your teammates and you guys are keeping in touch and stuff like that? What are the messages of support you're getting there from the rest of the squad?
To be fair, I've had a load of the boys message me in support and say that it's been an eye opener for them, because I've admitted in the past that you know, I've not been as vocal on things, and I'll be one of very few black people that any of the boys have got a close friendship with. So yeah, I've had some real good messages of support, you know, from staff, coaches, and supporting where I want to take it next, and if there's any steps I want to take to, you know, progress past social media really, and do something even more meaningful. But yeah, the support's been there, and it's been massive, in fairness, because like I said, at times it was tough.
And I think I'll let Sean and Paul jump in now, because I'll stop hogging all the questions. But I mean, look, it seems like we get a lot of flashpoints that bring the focus back on this issue over the last God knows how many years. But this feels slightly different, and it feels like more people are listening. But to me, I think the question now is, right, well, what's the action that we take? And I think maybe education to people, because like I'm sure people have heard so many different viewpoints from black people or people from other ethnic minorities who live in places like the UK and the US and whatever, and they're saying, well, actually, I have to think about my behaviour when I leave, in case I'm seen differently, my behaviour is taken differently to a white person like that. And a lot of those stories are really starting to resonate. But in your view, how do we start educating people on a greater level? How do we use platforms like, you know, like athletes, like sports clubs, like sports tournaments and leagues and stuff like that? How do we try and use that as a cause for social good, really?
I think first of all, it's a lot of responsibility on big institutions need to take responsibility for the messages that they send and the contributions they have to gaining equality. So if we forget the government for a minute, if we look at all of sponsorship brands, you know, if you look at the Premier League, the WRU, I think it's such a massive issue now, when everyone's been made so aware of it. You know, the Premier League have had the kick it out to do with racism in Wales. There's been show racism, the red card. But these are things you hear of, and they're sort of in place, but you know, what do they really do? So I do think it is about education. I think it's, you know, the right people pushing locally as best as they can, you know, whether it be their government, their local MP, to really push home the importance of education, because I believe that's where it 100% starts. You know, I've experienced racism from when I was a young boy, and it definitely starts there. And it's so much harder to change the mind of a grown man who's set in his ways with no experience or exposure in a diverse environment. You know, a lot of people, you'll find it, especially with a lot of elderly people, they're really stuck in their ways because that's what they're used to. So I think addressing it, you know, at the root, whether that be interventions at grassroots sports level, be it, you know, rugby, football, I think everyone needs to come together and really have a think about a serious initiative in giving a strong message in education.
Yeah, and do you know, I think it's really what Ashton's talked about now is very important is the momentum that we've got now. So, it's become a big issue in the last 7 or 8. Let's face it, it's been a massive issue for ages, but it's become an issue now in the last 6 weeks that people are aware of and are willing to do stuff about. And, for me now, the issue with Swing Low, Sweet Chariot being the England song, that shouldn't be a debate now. That's got to go. Right? If there's any hint of anything to do with slavery, to do with songs, whatever it might be, that's just got to go. That's not about sitting in a room with a lot of committee members now. That's just two people saying, right, that's enough for that. We're not singing that anymore, Twickenham. And I think some more initiatives that's any of the really overt stuff like that. In terms of education, I don't think an awful lot of people will even be aware of that link to slavery in that song. They'll just sing it. They probably aren't aware of it. And then, in terms of that, they aren't aware that they're being racist or even stepping on that issue. But anything like that has to go because you are aware of it now. So, let's move that out. And then I think giving black players a bigger voice in the game is really important. What Ashton's done and what Ellis Genge has been doing over the last 2 or 3 weeks has been really important. And I don't think it can be white people leading the debate either. You need to have black players taking it on and highlighting it, and then, trying to get some support from the unions. And I think the next 12 months we see a lot of change in rugby on the field and off. And, particularly with the race issue, I think it's hugely important that we make the most of that momentum now.
Well, the thing is, and Ashton will know this, when things like this, terrible things happen, it raises a lot of the far right wing things as well. So we've seen now, right, people from the far right coming out.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think it's a good thing because the normal person, if you like, if there is such a thing, is going, oh, Craig, people who lead sheltered lives are like, oh, I didn't realize they exist.
Exactly.
Well, that is what Ashton experienced. That's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
He's experienced this from a young kid, I would imagine Leon's the same, where, a young black kid prop at the Dragons and for Wales now, he would have had a similar sort of experience to you. But, it's up to us, normal people. I mean people who are hidden and sheltered from all this. You're the archetypal middle class white person to wake up and smell what's going on and start, saying to us, education, as Ash said, is a massive thing. Look, Ash, there's a couple of support messages for you coming through. Howell Davis has said, Time Magazine Person of the Year award right there. He says, keep doing what you're doing, Ashton.
Get him on the cover.
Michael Jenkins says, well done, Ashton. Great job. He's a regular. Michael, thanks for tuning in down in Pembrokeshire. Lynn Feeney is Alexander Lynn Feeney. Stay safe, Ashton. Hope to see you playing for the Dragons soon. Up the mighty Dragons. And Alexander Cameron, a lot of messages coming in there as well for you, mate. So what's your favourite tries? We'll ask you that now. And then also, do you like the knee just before the game for Black Lives Matter? Do you like that?
Yeah, and I think when going on what people are doing and not doing to sort of represent their support in the movement, I wouldn't want anybody to feel that they have to take a knee to prove that they're not racist, because at the end of the day, if you're not racist, you're not racist. But I feel that a lot of those players who are taking a knee, which I personally would do, are supporting their teammates, their black teammates, with football being such a diverse game. They're showing that level of respect to their teammates. I think that's one thing. And in all honesty, I think it is a hugely powerful message. I think it goes past the show racism, the red card and all that. It's action, it's in front of you. You see the presenters with the pin badges on saying Black Lives Matter, and I think it's hugely important, and it's a powerful step for such a big institution in this country to take, really. And favorite tries, I think my favorite try has got to be my debut try when I was 17. I was 17.
Think of that.
I was terribly ill, and this is a very long time ago now, thinking about it. But I was terribly ill, wasn't up for the game. My debut at home against Wasps. You know, they had all the big dogs out, and I wasn't up for the game at all because I was so ill. But I managed to score a bit of a stormer, so that's always stuck with me, and it's probably one of the best tries I've ever scored.
May I ask you as Dan Hadley 17, is there a particular game you played in where you felt like you learned the most, which helped improve you as a player? So you can answer that. But you can also, right? I've been tipping you on telly for bloody ages, boy, right? And you keep getting injured, right? So,
I'm working on it.
Sort those hamstrings out, will you? And back me up, for God's sake, you're making me look stupid here.
Well, first of all, before I answer that question, you were the first ever person to commentate on me when I was 20s, and so you haven't always been praising me.
Oh, you had a shocker. You had a shocker.
Yes.
I've got a vivid recollection of that.
You had a shocker.
I had a shocker, but yeah.
So answer Dan Hadley's question then. So, you know, is there a particular game you played in where you felt like you learned the most? Somebody give you a lesson, or you something clicked for you?
A game where I learned the most, I think it would have been my first judgment day, because having not been an international and down at Rodney Parade, we don't get the biggest crowds in the world. So playing in front of that many people, and my first one, coming off the bench, I was quite young. So that was really, I think that really impacted me, and I was so nervous. And I think that's one of the games where I sort of decided to switch those nerves off, and sort of try and enjoy it and embrace such an amazing atmosphere. And I think that's really important in rugby or in any professional sport, really. I think I sort of learned to control my nerves a bit more, which allowed me to perform better in the future then.
Good answer.
That was a good answer, actually.
Yeah. Here's one just from Mark Freeman. He's just looking at South Africa and their minimum quota. I think South Africa's is a different landscape, but I certainly think that there should be more opportunities to bring rugby to non-traditional areas and places where kids are looking for activity. Because I don't think necessarily need to take the South African approach, because that is a whole different landscape.
Yeah, different gig, innit?
Well, obviously that was probably a question from Mark Freeman to Ashton, so I'm sorry for answering it.
Yeah, you have to take the demographic as well. So if you went to South Africa today, the environment is so much more different than what you'd find in Wales or any other country. To be honest with you, there's still quite an intense presence of almost segregation, and you can almost see that within teams. So I think they're faced with a much more difficult issue than what we've got to address here, unfortunately, for them. But here I think it's more important to sort of allow black people and young black kids and of any ethnic minority that rugby is a game for them. Because growing up, because of history, there's not a huge number of black internationals in Wales that the younger generations could really call on as someone to look up to. So as far as engagement goes, I think that's really important in areas that aren't as popular with rugby, because in the cities there tends to be more football. So engagement is one huge thing. And then I think it's just about celebrating, Welsh players from the past. Even if they did go up and play league, they're still Welsh rugby players, really. And I think they should be celebrated. And I think that would give more of a legacy for young black children to follow and aspire to do rugby. I think it's a game for them.
Ash, I got to ask you, right, because I'm getting my coach's hat on bit, that, you're a brilliant role model, son, right? What you've done and you're doing is fantastic, right? Not just for young Welsh kids and Welsh rugby, but, right across. So well done for that. And I had a sort of a question, are you going to channel this to when you get back to prove a point. And then I've started to think you don't need to prove any points, right? You're so talented. The world's at your feet and in your hands. I mean, how are you going to approach now post-lockdown, getting back in this Pro 14 end of August? Are you just going to, galvanize yourself? Has this spurred you on in any way to get back and get out there and do what you do best?
Yeah, I think this issue has been a big focus without rugby being around. So it's sort of added to the intensity of it. Usually it's looking for something else to do away from rugby to sort of balance your mind a little bit. But due to lockdown, it's been sort of in the reverse because we've not got rugby, and now it seems to be all about, either coronavirus or the race issues in society. So I suppose in a sense it has given me that extra urge as well as being in lockdown. I think a few more people have taken note, of who I am. I've had some really positive messages on Twitter, from people who aren't Dragons fans, aren't even necessarily rugby fans, that said they're now going to be rugby fans. So I suppose I don't need to go and prove a point as such, because I do know what I can do, and I think I'd like to think people are aware of my potential. But I think regardless of this whole situation, I'm just busting to get back on the pitch like the rest of the boys.
Great.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask one quick thing. Obviously, from a purely on-field rugby perspective, now you've got Champions Cup rugby next season, which is fantastic, I think, for the region. And you've also got now, probably one of the strongest squads the Dragons have had in a long time. Some really good signings. Jonah Holmes arguably got the best stable of back row forwards coming through. So it's an exciting time on the field. Dean Ryan seems to have changed things quite a lot.
100%, and it was just as exciting for the other reasons you mentioned before Champions Cup. We only found that out a few days ago. So if you just spoke to anyone in our environment before lockdown, it would have been a real positive conversation about what's been going on. Everyone had a bit of fear in them when we found out that Dean was coming, because we already had a bit of a reputation and we didn't really know what we were in for. But he's been great, to be fair. I think all the boys are absolutely buzzing with the Champions Cup, because we always tend to do well in Europe anyway. And it opens us up to a lot more experiences that a lot of Dragons boys, especially the youngsters, will never experience, and we'll go to places that we've never played, and we'll invite some of the top teams in Europe to Rodney Parade, where hopefully we can make it our game. So yeah, it's extremely exciting. Everyone's looking forward to get back, and to be fair to the Dragons, they're staying ahead of the game and on the ball in getting back right to give us the best chances of succeeding.
I think with Dean, right, I've known him a long time, right, Ash, that he's mellowed a little bit. And he's mellowed a little bit, but having a seat on the board has probably, made his sort of demeanor a little bit different. Also, the expectation has been a little bit lower for him. So he's been. Yeah. You start doing well in that Champions Cup, boy, and getting it back in this Pro 14, right? The old hairdryer's coming out if you don't perform. I'm telling you now, right? He's got it in him, right? He's got it in him.
I keep my wits about me.
Yeah, you'll have to.
Very good. Ashton, this has been a real pleasure speaking to you, and just how eloquent you've been about everything, and certainly I think we're going to have conversations beyond this about how we can use the platforms, Pro 14, and how we can help with that education and stuff like that. But thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your evening and stuff. Any of the questions or comments in particular that you like the most, we'll send some Bear Hug gear to.
I think the one about what I've learned the most, one match made me learn the most as a rugby player. I think that's quite that's a bit of a different question to the usual one. So that's the winner for me.
Excellent. I think that's Dan Hadley who sent through.
Dan Hadley 17
sent that through.
Congrats.
As a
he gets a bear hug.
Yeah, he gets a bear hug. There you go. So Ash, look, brilliant stuff, and best of luck when you get back onto the pitch at the end of August, and stay safe.
Thank you. Well done, Ash. Me, guys.
Well done.
Cheers. Thanks, Ashton.
Thank you. Bye.
He's a cool dude. I like him.
Done brilliantly.
Yeah.
Very, very composed for a young guy.
Especially,
for a young guy.
yeah. I could barely make a phone call at that age. never mind to a live interview.
Very good. Moving on to a little bit of rugby news today. And this is one of these things where I wish I had a little bit of video up my sleeve. We will have a little bit of video. And Paul, you can do audio descriptions for those listening on the podcast. But Jamie is probably one of your specialist subjects. We've heard for weeks now, fans moaning, being aggravated. Where are the signings for Glasgow Warriors? Oof. Well, today we got one, and what a hell of a signing. They've confirmed that Leone Nakarawa is going to stay at Warriors, having been picked up during the season from Racing 92, where he was dismissed, terminated, whatever way you want to describe it. Jamie, this is sensational news, isn't it?
It's fantastic news, yeah, and I think it's, for the reasons you mentioned, it's very timely news as well. I think there were quite a few of particularly the more hardcore Glasgow fans who go every week, who have grown accustomed to seeing their team competing in semi-finals and finals and winning things and doing well in Europe and cultivating this awesome style of rugby, who've grown a bit restless, who've grown a little bit anxious at the quality of player that's left Glasgow over the last few years, with the Russells and the Hogs and Johnny Gray following, chat that Xander Fagerson could be the next cab off that kind of homegrown Scottish rank, if you like, and the lack of quality coming in to replace them. Dave Rennie also moving on. Danny Wilson coming back in his stead. The guys in Wales can talk with far greater authority on what he was like at Cardiff Blues. I know he did a fantastic job down there, but up here his CV isn't particularly well known, and I think the achievements that he brought about with the Blues, particularly with the Challenge Cup run, the teams that they beat, the constraints, the budgets, the financial issues he overcame there, and the players, the likes of Ellis Jenkins, who I think we're going to talk about later in the programme, who came through under his watch. That's not that well understood up here. I think a lot of fans look at Danny Wilson and go, geez, we're going from Gregor Townsend to Dave Rennie to Danny Wilson, and the quality is going down rather than going up. And there's an angst about, well, what kind of team are we going to have? Leone Nakarawa, I would go as far to say is he changes the narrative around Glasgow summer. I mean, obviously they need more. There's still a lot of holes in that squad. I'll go on and talk about where else I think Glasgow needs to strengthen later on, perhaps. But a player of the calibre of Nakarawa is such a boost for so many different reasons. He's obviously a wonderful player. He's a world-class player, and it's not very often that we can say a world-class player has chosen to play for a Scottish pro team over many, many other teams that would have loved, would have coveted, and would have, I'm sure, spoken to Leone Nakarawa's representatives about bringing him in. It happened when he left Racing. I'm sure it happened again amid the pandemic and the end of this, or the hiatus, I should say, to this season. His quality on the field is immense. He can do things that virtually no other rugby player, forward or back, can do. And also, if you talk to, speaking just anecdotally to some of the players in that Glasgow team, the confidence and the influence that he has just around the place in training is massive. And that's something that I think fans don't always appreciate. I did a piece this week with Jason O'Halloran, very, very smart coach, heading out to Japan, having been Glasgow and Scotland attack coach for the last 4 or 5 years. And he said, look, when Leone came in January for his second stint after leaving Racing, Glasgow, I think, were 11th in terms of the number of offloads they had made in the Pro 14. 5 games later, they were first by miles. He only played in 2 of those games. He only played 2 league games when he came back, and then the virus shut rugby down. But just his influence in terms of other players wanting to offload, other players starting to think about, gee, let's get my hands free, let's get through the tackle, let's look for that offload. And I think he gave them a bit of fresh impetus in the kind of second half of the season. The form started to improve, where the first half had been a little bit patchy. So I think for all those reasons, he is a massive retention. The only caveats I would say is that it's a shame, first and foremost, it's only 1 year. And we don't quite know what kind of format we're going to have for the full duration of next season. So you don't know how long you're going to have access to him for, what kind of internationals he may be away for, and what have you. But at 32, he's probably looking down the line and going to do another year at Glasgow, where he loves it. He absolutely loves it in Glasgow. There's so many bonds that he's forged there. I think it's one of these club player relationships that just works. You get some players that, for one reason or another, are just brilliant at one particular club, and sometimes struggle, or sometimes don't feel as home elsewhere when they move. And because of the work that was done, the effort and the kind of emotional intelligence in Glasgow when he was here for his first spell around the 2015 World Cup, he loves it here. He feels appreciated, and that's really important for any player. But I think especially for Pacific Island guys who are a long way from home in very unfamiliar environments. And I think this was Leone's first overseas contract as a rugby player. So,
Paul, we're going to get to some really good stats now in a few minutes. So Sean can kind of put those in context, how he'd harness Leone Nakaroa in his team. But Paul, a second row who offloads like an octopus. Tell me exactly why you hate this signing.
Oh man, but he's like a top 15 global signing. That player, if you were picking a world 15 now, he wouldn't start, but he might be in the conversation about putting him on the bench. Can cover lock, can cover the back row, and just does stuff other players can't. Like you say, he is the best offloading forward in the game. There's nobody better. He does change the way you play, like Jamie was saying. He changed the script totally. You all now have to figure out what he is about to do, as opposed to just following pod systems and whatever it might be. He's not necessarily into that. He's, ball in one hand like a tic-tac, and sometimes he's just going to do whatever he wants to do. And he's the player that, he's season ticket, he's bums on seats at a signing. So it doesn't really, it does matter how many times he plays, obviously, because you want to get your value for money out of him. But when you sign a player like that, it's a big statement for a club. And, he'll be on all the advertising. He'll be the player everyone wants to interview. He'll be, he's a marquee franchise player, as you'd say, Adam.
Very good. Now, I'm going to show you just, Jamie touched on it there about his impact already. So
look at that.
For those of you listening, I've just flicked up the offloads stats section from Pro14.rugby. So Giovanni Licata, somebody who Sean was speaking to Michael Bradley about recently at Zebra, he's top 15. Hallam Amos 13, Steph Evans 11, and joint fourth, Jared Evans and Leone Nakaroa at 10 offloads each. Now, I'm going to put this in context, right? Nakaroa has played 2 games.
Right.
Evans has played 9. Steph Evans has played 12. Amos has played 6. And Kata has played 10. He has played 2, and he's already into the top 10 of offloads. But it gets even better. Our friends at Opta Johnny, put this one out. 187. Leone Nakaroa has made 187 offloads in the at Pro 14 official since making his debut in 2013. That is 79 more than any other player, despite spending 3 seasons in the top 14.
It's ridiculous.
Absurd.
That's unbelievable.
That is actually it. Absurd is the word, isn't it?
And do you know what you've got to say about that as well is, I'd say about 80% of those go to hand. He's not just flicking those around, having a laugh. Most of those are delivered accurately. So, I'd be really interested to see what his completion is on those offloads. I think it'll be quite high.
It also begs the question, where have Glasgow been? With those sort of statistics, coaches talk about offloads, they're game breakers, they're line breakers, where the rest of the team been, because they should be flying away with Pro 14 titles if Nakaroa was in the mix. I think, to me, he's a bonus in your squad, right? You have to coach players around him to expect, a multitude of offloads. So your support lines and this, that, and the other. Let's face facts. The core of Glasgow forwards maybe aren't that way inclined, you know. So Danny's got a job on his hands, and I tell you now, right, Nakarawa is not a Danny Wilson style player, because for every yin there's a yang. So he's gonna have to find now. And Johnny Gray would have been ideal, the ideal foil, the workhorse, the numbers, the carries, the tackles, the rucks hit, the things that Nakarawa doesn't really do. But Johnny Gray's gone. So Danny's charged with finding those sort of players now, because selection is a balance. And if you've got Nakarawa on your team, he's doing all that great stuff, but I can tell you now, he's a lot of stuff he's not doing. So somebody else has to do it. And that's where Danny's really good. Now, Danny's a set piece oriented guy. By that, I mean, he's very technical around that, and he'll want to get that right. So that's going to be great for Glasgow. They're going to be quite ruthless in that department, something Cockers has brought to Edinburgh. And Danny's very big on development. He talked about Ellis Jenkins. Of course, he was Wales under-20s coach. Saw a lot of those youngsters come through. I worked with him at the Scarlets and at Bristol. And, you know, he's big on development, but he sees the wider game. You know, what he learned at the Cardiff Blues was to be a head coach and manage a budget and get the best out of your players and coaches. It was a bittersweet experience for him, because I'm not sure he then was a bit wary of being a head coach again, took a step back in terms of the position, and the time at international rugby will have given him a little bit of a fillip. Now he's rolling his sleeves up. And I think for Glasgow Warriors supporters, Jamie, he's the right sort of guy that Glasgow need at the moment. You don't want a Gregor Townsend who's going to go on. You don't want a Dave Rennie who's going to get picked up by a Super Rugby team or international team. Danny's setting his stall out. He'll have a plan. And I won't be surprised if Glasgow really kick on. No, I won't be surprised, because I know what Danny's capable of. And I think they'll kick on under him, and you'll see them develop in the nuts and bolts facets of the game that I think they need to. Not the offloading Yahoo stuff that we've seen.
Right, we have a question here from Alexander Cameron, and it's for Jamie. And we'll get back to Jamie now in a second. So, in your opinion, Price or Horn as a scrum half for Glasgow? Now, I'm not in cahoots with Alexander here. I'm not in cahoots with Mr. Cameron, because I did have something lined up for tonight. I know we all enjoyed Bill Matta's offload with the extra little angles that we got beforehand. So I did a little bit of digging around recently, boys, and I found this beauty from George Horn to Pete Horn, the Horn connection, which we have seen many times. This one, Ulster at the wrong hands in the semi-final last year.
They've done that so many times.
Yeah,
I've seen them do it at least 8 times, that kick, in varying executions.
They used to do it in the garden when they were kids.
Yeah, they must have, because he knows what's going on there, and I've seen them do it.
They got a try disallowed against Wales, right?
Yeah.
They just went over the dead ball line, but they did this exact thing against Wales. Wales got caught out, and I think the ball just went touching goal. But you can see, I think I did some analysis on this for Premier. He just gives a little look, and obviously it's Peter Horn that has to time his run. But the deft kick is, I think Stockdale, if we got to see it again, Stockdale's caught napping. There he is, look, he's out of position. And if you've got somebody who's not, and I think it's Marshall, 21, look, see, he was in the line. 21's in the line. Stockdale doesn't cover. And that's where the Horn brothers will exploit you. So they will have done their homework on that and saw that 9 will be in the line and Stockdale's probably napping. Brilliant stuff, isn't it?
It's amazing.
Jamie, they do it so often, and it's come off so often. You think people should know by now, shouldn't you?
Yeah, you would, but I think they also mix it up. They mix up the strike place quite well. I mean, that one there, you guys will have dug back through the archives for that from last year's semi-final, but that was a game where they ripped Ulster to pieces. I certainly did not see that performance coming. I think it was 40-something, 10 or something crazy like that. And I think that try came when they were about 30 points up or 25 points up, having already bludgeoned, bamboozled, lacerated what was an Ulster side that was still a little bit short of what they're building to now under Dan McFarland. So I don't think it's that predictable. Clearly it's not, or it wouldn't be working so much. And I think Glasgow, especially under Gregor and Dave Rennie, have always been good at just coming up with, the weird and wonderful plays that can catch a defence napping and use someone like a George Horn, someone like a Nakarawa, someone like a Stuart Hogg or a Hastings or a Russell, to unlock a defence. And I think that's the perfect example of it there.
And I think the difficulty with George Horn is you can't just rush up on him and try and block the kick if you think it's coming, because he'll skin you with his feet.
Yeah. Because
he steps so fast, doesn't he? So if you rush up, you've been done again on TV.
But the thing with those trick plays and that is that they wouldn't have used that for 2 or 3 weeks before, right?
Right.
Because teams will do their analysis. And then if you notice, right, the substitute scrum half is on. It's probably around 50, 60 minutes where a lot of the pre-match planning analysis of, right, watch out for the Horn brothers. George is probably on the bench. He's come on. Right. Stockdale's forgotten all that. It's gone. It's 60, 55 minutes. They're getting bumped. And it's like, oh yeah, I remember seeing that on Tuesday morning. Well, too late, son. So it's when you bring them in the game, when the subs are on who haven't been listening in the week, or they haven't quite registered, or they're a bit gung-ho, or people are tired, bang, you strike, and that's
really interesting. That I would never thought of it like that. So you use the trick play in the last sort of 15.
Yeah, but you're a tennis player, that's right.
Not a very good one of those either.
And Sean, I suppose I'll get Jamie's thoughts on this in a second. Who would you pick, Price or George Horn? Who are you starting, or are you going to go horses for courses?
Oh gosh, this is a tough question. I think I'd probably go with as it is. I'd go Ali Price as your steady sort of little petit general, and then Horn gets you a try. I think you got to flip it, man, and say, would they be as effective the other way around? Well, if you're closing a game out, yes, but I think I'd be happy with as it is. Price with Horn to come on. Yeah,
Jamie, what's your call on it?
I'm glad you boys have given me a nice, easy question for my first appearance on the podcast. It's hard because I'm a bit of a teary-eyed rugby romanticist, so my heart is screaming, pick George Horn, pick George Horn, pick George Horn. But the thing is, see, Paul, you and I can discuss on this sort of thing. But I think with my more pragmatic head on, you probably do lean towards Price. But in saying that, Price gives you a lot of that razzle-dazzle as well. Price is by no means a conservative option at scrum half. He gives you line breaks. He's got blistering pace. He's got a lovely crisp pass. I think sometimes his confidence can be knocked a little bit. I mean, he's had various issues which he's spoken really well about in his career, where you boys will remember well the interception passes down in Cardiff, the year when we were supposed to be coming down to finally take you boys to the cleaners in Cardiff, and we got absolutely pumped in the first round of the Six Nations, 30-8, I think. I think he put on a little bit of weight. Dave Rennie actually came out and said publicly, look, he's come back to us from Scotland and he's fat. And Ali Price spoke really well. I think he did a big sit-down interview with one of my colleagues up here and said, I came back, I was overweight, and I sorted myself out, and he was fantastic the back end of last season and those games, the Ulster game in particular. But I find it really tough not to pick George Horn. I just think he's got the perfect blend of everything you want in a scrum half. He's not irresponsibly loose. He's not rash. In terms of a rugby brain, he's incredibly sharp. But not only does he have, someone like a Greg Laidlaw's got the instinct. He knows where to put the ball. He knows how to vary an option. He knows when to put it in behind, when to use the bruisers, when to spin it wide, what play to call, etc. But he doesn't necessarily have the speed of Deed to actually execute it. When I'm talking about his breaking or his passing, but George Horn has got that in abundance. His defence is also outstanding. If you look at the number of cover tackles that George Horn makes, everyone sees his optimistic support lines where he's running about 400 yards ahead of the ball carrier, corner flag, and then that's where he gets so many of his tries from, taking an inside ball or sniping around the corner of a ruck when you're in behind. But defensively, he's awesome. And a lot of that's come from the sevens as well. He spent a couple of years in the sevens circuit of Scotland, and that really puts your skills under the microscope, as you guys well know. So. Do you know what? I'm gonna go heart over head and say Horn to start. Why not?
Very good, very good. Well, I think Paul Williams is having one or two connectivity issues tonight, so I'm going to be
It's all
putting up.
excitement over George Vaughan, I think.
Yeah, it's all the excitement over George Vaughan. I'm going to.
Oh, sorry,
I got to.
it keeps dropping out. Sorry, guys.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. You're making a terrible racket over there anyway. Oh, sorry. That was terrible. That was terrible.
God, you know, that was so bad, Adam. My brain didn't even register that then. It spat that out before it went in.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna try another effort at comedy here. So we know that Sean, that the holster, has been Mr. Fitness during lockdown. Sean, how much weight have you lost now?
Today it's 10 kilograms.
Right.
That's good
well,
going, Sean.
do you know what? I'm going to show you somebody who's lockdown has probably been a little bit more productive than Sean.
Oh no, God, it's gonna be embarrassing.
And I don't think he's lost any weight. Have a look at this that came out.
Oh my God!
I know.
He's put some timber on.
What? I know.
That is
I'm saying nothing.
Sexton's head on it, surely.
It's
Not Johnny.
The picture yesterday that was published looked even more distorted, but he's been lifting a lot. That boy.
Yeah, it's
moving to 6.
Yeah, moving to 6. Yeah, he looks
Jesus.
like it all right. Yeah, Sean.
That's the first time. That's the first time I've seen that. Is that really Johnny?
Yeah.
That is legit.
I tell you what's quite interesting though. I've seen a few players this week wandering around Cardiff because they're all out and about, and they all live in the centre of town. So I saw John Davis, who looks in ridiculous condition.
Foxy.
John Fox Davis.
Fox.
Right.
Stop.
Unbelievable, right? He looks absolutely shredded. I saw him. I won't say where I saw him. He looks in magnificent nick. I saw Gareth Anscombe. He looks like he's been training hard as well.
Oh, he's in good nick, chicken.
Yeah, unbelievable. I don't know why they call him Chicken. He's massive.
I know. It's Swino. It's Swino. Look, WWE still going. Johnny off the top. Suplex. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. I'd say it must be interesting when the players all come back in and some of them, because as much as they've been given their schedules and told this is what you need to do, I'm sure there's a few of them who just thought, yes, time beach muscles. Let's boom.
Yeah.
So it'd be
that's the thing, isn't it? That's not a rugby body.
Yeah.
That's I'm going to Magaluf in a month.
Well, when you're not,
it's all biceps.
When you're not running around in like these boys would train rugby sessions now, and forget weights. They train a good hour on a Monday. They'd have 2 sessions on a Tuesday, an hour and a half, and then another 40-minute unit session. Thursday they'd have another hour session. Friday they'd have a captain's run. Saturday they'd play. That's a lot of running in a week.
Yeah.
And add to that the conditioning, the feeds. Their prehab and rehab and all of that sort of stuff. He's been sat in the house. The IRFU have given him a load of kettlebells and weights, and it looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Let's face it looks like it. But his crash ball is flat off Conor Murray up the line now, Sexton over the gain line, and
to the middle.
Yeah,
this is the thing, because
The Andy Good line, the crash ball 10.
But look at this again. I mean, like it's. Like you've got, if you're listening to this on the audio and for the pod, if you haven't seen the picture of Johnny Sexton from Leinster training this week, go have a look at it. We've just put it back up here again. But you know what's interesting, right? When is the last, whenever has a professional rugby player going to go 5 months without playing a game?
Yeah.
So
right,
the idea to be able to strengthen, bulk up, put on, protect. I mean, some of that may be protective as well, because.
But John, we've said this before. Johnny's a big boy.
Yeah.
He's he's a tall man. He's a big lad.
He's 6'2", is he? Is he 6'2", Sean?
Easy 6'2". I mean, might be a bit more, but I'd be interested to see. It's not a flattering photograph either. Arms okay and neck, but I'd like to see him his top off. He's probably pretty ripped as well. He's. I was shocked. I thought it was one of those gifts or whatever you call them.
Sean proving he is down with the kids about the gifts.
Down with the kids.
Yeah, very good. Well, actually, I suppose as I touched on there, we did have the announcement last week. The Guinness Pro 14 will set its sights on August 22nd to return to action. We're going to get two further rounds to the regular season. So we'll get 2 rounds of derbies in each of the countries, and then straight into semi-finals and a final. Obviously, this isn't the ideal way to finish things off. We've gone from 21 regular rounds down to 15. We've tried to be as equitable as possible as well, and especially when it comes to things like European qualifications. So the standings as they are right now after round 13, and the 2 postponed games in Italy from round 13 have been deemed 0-0 draws. So that's 2 points picked up by Ospreys away to Zebre, and 2 points picked up by Ulster away to Benetton. I think those teams might be quite happy with it, actually.
I think the season the Ospreys have had, I think they'd be happy taking 2 points to Zebra.
Yeah, so they've so that's where European qualification will go from. And actually, I'm going to link back to 2 things for Sean there. So number one, Zebra. We were talking to Michael Bradley recently for the big interview series on Pro14.rugby, and he was talking about the new pitch coming in, so they can play that really expansive game that he wants them to play. The pitch has been torn up. That's on Twitter now at the moment, so it looks like a sand pit at the moment. So they're going to get their new pitch. And actually, just circling back to Johnny, your most recent interview, Sean, was with Leo Cullen.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting comment made by Leo because they talked about The Last Dance. Sean, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, firstly, now looking at the Johnny picture, he was really intrigued to see the results of the testing. So they'd gone in and done some testing and fat tests and weights and all that, and he hadn't had the results, Leo. So be interesting what he thought of Johnny's results, wouldn't it? Yeah. But yeah, Last Dance. Leo's he keeps himself to himself, but they actually watched it with the players, didn't they? All the players watched it.
I think they were chatting about it anyway as a group in some way, shape, or form.
And he said it was interesting to see the characters and the makeup of the squad and the egos and how to manage them. And he said, "I leave it to your imagination who's who in our squad." So he's got to, those top teams have those sort of personalities. You've got to have them, But he was great, Leo. He was quite relaxed, wasn't he? Loved talking to Brad. He's enjoying his time in Italy. Loving the fact that he wants to play this expansive game. I used to love playing Connacht away and going for a couple of Guinnesses with him, win, lose or draw. But he's doing great things down there. But yeah, the Leo one is worth a look.
Definitely. And Sean, the latest edition of the Tuesday Club making headlines in certain reputable media outlets. Who did you have on? Yourself and Kyle Reese. Who did you have on?
We got Sanjay or Liam Williams, the Wales fullback, ex-Saracens, on his way back to Scarlets. He's locked in Chepstow in Gwent, not far from Ashton Hewitt there, with his fiancée Sophie's parents. They got caught in lockdown out in Barbados on holiday, so he got back. But kindly came on, talked about the limited amount of training he's been able to do, the fact that he hasn't played golf, that he got thrashed 8-0 on FIFA in a gaming tournament by Ellis Genge. But he also, I asked him about what the differences were going to be with Wayne P back, and he just mentioned that, there may be a little bit more communication around it. Warren was... he liked to play with a few mind games with players. There's nothing wrong with that. Getting whatever gets the best out of them, and it gets picked up, doesn't it, and turned around. However, but he was good. The Tuesday Club is our podcast. It's very light. It's much like Under the Sticks. It's very light. A bit of fun, easy listening on a walk. We don't want it to be too serious, and Sanjay made it like that.
Happy days. And while we're going around the houses doing all of our plugs, by popular demand, the Paul Williams column returned to Pro14.rugby last week, and Paul, we got your latest edition out tomorrow. But you're
let's not give it too big a sell. I wouldn't say it's popular demand, but 3 people said, are you writing something again? So,
well, we're excited about rugby coming back in terms of the Guinness Pro 14, but you're excited for another comeback. Tell us more.
Yeah, so Ellis Jenkins is back in full training, and I think that's massive news. For the league, actually. He's one of the best players in the league when he's fit, and for him to be back playing for Cardiff Blues would be massive. I mean, I know they've got a ridiculous amount of talent there already with Navidi, and they've got Ollie Robinson, and they're not short. You've got Will Boyd as well, but Ellis, I think that's what's unusual, and it's testament actually to how good he is, that even amongst all of the open sides that we've got in Wales, with James Davis and Navidi and Tipperick, and it's endless now with Tame Basham, and they're everywhere. Yeah. But people still missed Ellis Jenkins. So even amongst all of that, people were wondering, when's he coming back? Because he was captain in Wales before he was injured. And arguably, he's the 15% of all the other good Welsh players added together in one body. So he's got the handling, he's got the awareness, he's got the jackling work, he's got the defence. So to have him back, it's fantastic, and I can't wait to watch him play, A, from a rugby level, and B, on a personal level as well. I think to reach that level of the game and then to be out for nearly 2 years with such a, that knee injury he had, that was like something at the opening scenes, a casualty. Not much more can go wrong, to what happened to his leg. So, yeah, it's fantastic for him and for the league.
Sean, is Paul overhyping Ellis there? I mean, Ellis is a terrific player and lovely guy to boot, which, for a back row, that's not necessarily a positive, I don't think.
What stands him out is his leadership qualities. I think that's what Paul alluded to. We got so many good sevens. Watch over Tame Basham. He is X factor with pace. Be interesting to see how Ellis's pace is after that horrendous knee injury. Josh Navidi has that strength, the turnover ability, and explosiveness. Justin Tipperick is just an all-round fantastic ball player and line-out option and ball stealer. Cubby Boy is a guy that crops up with pace. And I mean, Ellis just brings you that calmness, that leadership, that solidity, and then does the right thing at the right time. So almost Sam Warburton-esque, if you like, And that's what might stand him out from the others. He may not be as good in any one of those things that the others are, but when you add it all together, he might be the right guy for Wayne Pivac. It remains to be seen because it's a big ask to come back. And it always is after such an horrendous injury. So, but it's just a lovely boy, and it's good to see him back.
There you go. Paul, you need a new crush since Hadley's departure. Ellis can fill that void.
I know. I'm putting together a shortlist now. new top 5 rugby man crush.
You should put that up for vote on.
That could be the next column.
Vote on. There you go. Happy days.
5 things we learned about Paul's rugby man crushes.
Man, so Tutu's got to be one of them at the moment. The way he's playing.
Oh man, I tell you, they'll all be in Super Rugby.
Shameless plug. Tune in 8:00 Saturday morning under the stick Super Rugby special.
Yeah.
I know. I look forward to that all week.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of good feedback off that, which is pretty good. So not just the numbers, not just the audience, the people staying with us on Saturday mornings for our watch along with your cup of tea and your toast and whatever. We love interacting with people, getting the comments in, so that's going really well. Guys, before we wrap up, Jamie, have you anything to flog as well? Have you selling your car? Got a flat to rent, fridge, anything? We've done the full gambit here of plugging.
Well, as a PEY freelancer who's had virtually no support over the last 4 months, if anybody's looking for me to commentate on their day-to-day lives, on their fence, on their dog walking,
kids parties,
if you want a hideously overwritten flowery feature on your drive to the grocery store or your weekly shop around Asda, disobeying the one-way systems, very naughty, hit me up. Beyond that, from a serious point of view, like I did what I thought was a really fascinating chat with Jason O'Halloran, which I mentioned earlier on in the podcast. We went out on Rugby Pass website a couple of days ago. I think it went up on Sunday. And much like Sean's kind of sit-down interviews with the head coaches, I tried to dig into what Glasgow have been all about over the last couple of years around the conundrum they've got, in Jason O'Halloran's words, with recruitment, whereby they don't have the budget of a lot of the provinces, or obviously of the teams in England and France, but they've still got a level of expectation where they've got a sold-out crowd every week. Scotstown's, you can't get in Scotstown most weekends.
Yeah,
they're going to expand it at some point in the future, although that's obviously been put back just now. How do you stay up there? How do you recruit at a level that allows you to continually be at the playoff level, at the title winning level against the Leinsters and the real heavyweights of Europe, when you're losing Russell and Hogg and Gray and possibly Fagerson, you're losing guys like Callum Gibbons, Josh Strauss, Alex Dunbar have all gone off the boil or left in recent years. How do you continually populate that team with quality young Scots like George Horn, Matt Fagerson, Tommy Gordon and Bruce Flockhart, Xander Fagerson, all these guys, George Turner starting to come through and make those positions their own. But in terms of recruitment, Glasgow are looking at, let's say from a fullback perspective, and I'm just talking ballpark figures here, they might have like a Glenn Bryce, a squad player, on maybe £50,000-60,000 a year. If they want to go and sign a Super Rugby player, Jason O'Halloran was saying, at 15, say a starting fullback from one of the New Zealand franchises who's maybe got an All Black cap, maybe on the fringe of the All Blacks, you're talking 350 grand a year or more. Is he 7 times better than Glenn Bryce? Is he bringing intangible benefits in terms of work ethic, culture, intelligence, rugby IQ, something new, something fresh that's going to input into your environment and improve your squad and make you better, like Nakarawa does, improving the players around him? And is he bringing value that way? It's very, very hard to justify that level of expenditure for Glasgow, and they have to get those big decisions right. I thought it was really interesting to actually hear a coach, albeit a coach who's just leaving, talk so candidly about the kind of decisions that they're having to make. And also, if you look at Glasgow's overseas recruitment recently, it's not been great. You look at guys like Lelia Masanga, Samu Hunisa, Halanuka Nuka, a couple of American players, a couple of Fijian players that haven't really hit the heights. Nick Frisbee never really got much of a look in and wasn't outstanding when he did. David Tamilau. There's a long list of misses, and a lot of the hits in the recent recruitments are guys that are coming back to the team, like a Van der Merwe or a Rory Jackson. So
Rory Jackson, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that went up on Rugby Pass on Sunday, and I was really pleased with the reaction that got, and I think it was quite revealing to a lot of fans to actually see the kind of ruminations that go on behind the scenes when you're weighing up what your recruitment's going to look like.
Absolutely. Well, who'd be a coach, Sean?
Can you see the grey?
Oh God! Well, guys, that has been really enjoyable tonight. I'm going to do this in a particular order, but well done to Dan Hadley for Ashton Hewitt picking him out for the best questions. So, Bear Hug are the unmistakable orange muscle sleeves and joint supports, uniquely using bamboo in the makeup of their supports. This difference in composition can increase blood flow and dramatically reduce rehabilitation and recovery periods while enhancing performance. Visit getitbearhug.com. Paul, talk to the guys. Get me a snappier read.
I'll rewrite that. I'll do that for them.
Absolutely. Thank you to everybody who's made their comments, as always. Really appreciate that. Thank you to the Scottish Elvis up in the top right hand corner.
That's gonna stick.
That's jealousy, surely, Adam.
Yeah, sorry, I'm lashing out. I got referred to as Owen Franks last week when I wore a New Zealand top. So
him. Can't figure out which way to go.
There we go. Mr. Paul Williams, thank you very much for your insights and your humour as always. Sean, thank you again. And guys, I have to say, the biggest thank you of all to Ashton Hewitt for making his time tonight.
Thanks, Ashton.
So eloquent for a guy, at his age, and we wish him the very best of luck, and we will be hearing a lot more from him in the future, and the good causes that I think we all understand that we've got to play a role in the future of society in terms of educating our friends, our family, and trying to make a difference. Being passive is no longer good enough. So there you go. So that was Under the Sticks, presented by Big Red Cloud. Visit www.bigredcloud.com for all your accounting needs. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Alla